And 3, 2.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A special warm welcome to all of the students who are going to be joining us here at our Southbourne site in September. So welcome to our Year 7 new intake evening. My name is Ben Doyle. I'm the head teacher of St Peter's, and it's my great privilege to hold this position at the school. I wanted to start though with an apology that we couldn't hold our usual transition events as we would do at this time of year. So normally on this evening you come into school, you'd meet your child's tutor, and your child will get to spend time with their tutor as well, and we can tell you a lot more about the school and what's going on, and an opportunity for you to ask any questions you may have as well at that time. What we then have the following week is our transfer day, when your child will get to spend a whole day in school to really just familiarise themselves with the site and just to find out a lot more about us as a school and about the community. And it's a real shame that hasn't been able to happen this year, because I fully appreciate that some of you won't have ever visited the site before, and it must be a very strange and overwhelming feeling to apply to a school that you haven't actually stepped foot on the site, at any time before. So we've got all sorts of plans in place that we can help to make up for that as your child starts or continues their journey with us at St Peter's, and we'll say a little bit more about that later on. So just wanted to say a little bit about the format of the evening tonight. The event will last no more than 1 hour. We're going to start with our opening prayer in a little moment, and then I will give you a talk about our ethos here at St Peter's. And our ethos is really about our attitudes, our beliefs, and our aspirations that really are lived out in our community. So I'll talk through some of that. And then Miss Johnson, who is our senior leader for transition and for Year 7, who will be a very important person in your child's life over the next few months and years at St Peter's. She will give a talk about what to expect in the first few days of September. And then we'll finish the evening with a question and answer session. And with the question and answer session, there's an opportunity for you at any time throughout the evening to write a question in the box on the side of your screen. If you type your question in there, if we feel it's a question that's just personal to yourself, we can answer that, with a private message back. If it's a question we feel may be valid for a large number of parents or a larger number of parents, what we'll do is we'll answer that at the question and answer session at the very end. So hopefully that's all very clear. As I say, please feel free. You don't need to wait to the end to ask questions. You can ask them at any time you wish. So we're going to start with our prayer, and the way we start prayers here at St Peter's is different perhaps from some other places, so we're just going to go through at the moment. And on the screen I've got the words in yellow that I'm going to say and the words in white that I would appreciate if you could join with me at home. I know you're not here in body, but you can be here with us in spirit. And so what we'll do is we'll do that. We'll make the sign of the cross and we'll go through, and I'll say a little bit more about the prayer as we go through it. So when we start prayers at St Peter's, we always start in this way. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And then I say, let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God, and let us adore him. So for our prayer this evening, I'd like to say a little bit about our patron, St John Baptiste de la Salle. So St John Baptiste de la Salle started the de la Salle order all the way back in the 1650s and the 1700s, and he is the founder of our school, or the order that founded our school. And I'd like to say a little bit more about his journey, because it seems very strange that someone who was around 350 years ago could have so much relevance to us even to this day. So he was born in the Champagne region of France in a town called Reims, and I always think it's an interesting story that his mother's maiden name was Moët, and of course we still see her name on the champagne bottles of the region that is so famous for. But he was destined for a life of great privilege, and back in those days you only got an education if you were from a wealthy family. So he was set off on this wonderful pathway that things were going to be very, very good and very, very pleasant for him throughout his whole life, and he was going to live a very privileged life. But he had a conversionary experience when he was younger, when he returned to his hometown of Reims in France and saw poor, destitute children on the street. And he looked at them and realised they in many ways were hopeless. They had no hope, they had no chances, they had no prospects. And he just wanted to do something for them, to give them an opportunity, to make something more of themselves. So he took them in, he bought a house where the children all lived, and he started to teach them. And he taught them using local teachers. He actually had to train the teachers up because they weren't very good at teaching at that time. And in many ways was a pioneer when we're talking about how do we make our teachers better teachers. And so he did all these things for them and gave up his great titles and all the things he was going to have in life. But I think as well as that inspirational example of what he did to make a real difference to these people, his words are just as inspirational. And there's one saying he had in particular, which sticks with us today. It is absolutely central to what we do today. And the saying is this: to touch the hearts of your students is the greatest miracle you can perform. And that's something which is absolutely key to us here at St Peter's. So I think for our prayer here today, I would like us to pray that our young people who are going to be joining us in September can have their hearts open to all the goodness that God wishes to give them. And we pray that our teachers can do everything, and all the other adults who work with them, to inspire them to become the best they can be. Whenever we finish our prayer at St Peter's, we always say our mission statement together, and our mission statement is hugely important to us, and I'm going to take us through that in a little moment. But before we do that, I invite you to say our mission statement together. With Christ as our guide, learning together, loving God and each other, becoming the best we can be. And then we pray to the various saints at the end as well. So again, I say the bits in yellow, I'd invite you to say the bits in white. St Peter, pray for us. St John Baptiste de la Salle, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I'd like to say a little bit more about our school and the journey your child is joining us on, very, very shortly, or continuing their journey with us. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. But believe it or not, this is the first cohort who joined us at St Peter's back in 1936 and 1937. So we can see the children there. There's only 66 of them. They were all boys back then, and I think there were only about 7 or 8 teachers at that time as well. And I do wonder what emotions they were going through as they started their journey at the school, and perhaps some of those emotions are some of the same things you're feeling about joining us in September. The last couple of years when we've had these events previously, when we could hold these events, I would always talk to the children on the way in and say, tell me how you're feeling. How are you feeling about joining us in September? And amazingly, 2 words more than any other came up. Those words were nervous and those words were excited. But I think the excited certainly outdid the nervousness. So perhaps your children are feeling a little nervous. Perhaps they're feeling very excited about coming as well. And hopefully we can do a little bit more just to help them prepare for their journey to join our wonderful community. And this is one of my favourite pictures we got of our community here at St Peter's. In this picture here is the De La Salle star, and it's something your child will find out a bit more about when they join us in September. But in that star, and I don't know if you can make it out on your screens at home, but this is 2,000 students and staff of our community. So in the middle are all the students from the secondary phase, so all the students from year 7 to year 13. And around the outside of the picture, in the circle there around the star, are our primary phase children. So back then there weren't as many as there are now, but we're very blessed to be an all-through school. In fact, some of you watching tonight, I don't know if you can make yourselves out in that picture, possibly not, but I'm sure you remember that day. I think it's a wonderful chance for us this year as our first cohort from year 6 joins us into year 7 as well, because it means that 60 children in our year 7 actually already know the school, already know the staff, already know our ethos, and already know how we do things here at St Peter's. And that's going to be a great asset to all of the 180 others of you who are joining us as well, because it means you've got 60 who can help you and guide you along the way, 60 who can help answer any questions possibly you may have as well, and will help you settle in. So I think we're going to have a wonderful year 7 this year. I'm really looking forward to you all joining us, but I don't think we can avoid what's been going on over the last 2 years at the same time. The last 2 years have been dominated, of course, by COVID-19, which has affected us in so many ways in schools. I think it's been disruptive. Over the last 2 years, some of you will have had many weeks out of school throughout, your journey throughout year 5 and year 6. And I'm really sad about all the lost opportunities there have been as well. So many opportunities have been missed. And when I think about, your year 6 journey, perhaps you've missed out on residentials, perhaps you missed out on all sorts of performances and things that would have been happening under normal circumstances. And again, I've already spoken about the lost opportunities in terms of visiting a secondary school, in terms of coming along for a transfer day, and even in terms of coming along this evening for our induction evening. You've missed out on those opportunities, and those are really important in informing you and in making you and in helping you, as you progress through your life. So I'm so sorry you've lost so many of those. And there's been lots of suffering as well as the suffering to your learning. Undoubtedly, you've missed lots of lessons and those opportunities I've been talking about. Some of you may well have suffered in terms of sickness in your family. Some of you may even lost loved ones throughout the last 2 years. So it's been a very difficult 2 years. And when I talk to people about what we want to have next year, a lot of people have talked to me saying we want to have an ordinary or a boring year in many ways. And whilst I understand what people mean when they're saying about ordinary and boring, meaning they don't want us to have to worry about bubbles and face masks and self-isolation and other things, I don't want our year to be ordinary. I don't want our year to be boring. I want our year to be extraordinary and exciting, because I think some of those opportunities you've missed out on, we've got to do everything we can to give you those opportunities as we move forward throughout the next few years here at St Peter's. So like I say, extraordinary and exciting, but for all the right reasons. And the other thing I want it to be is nurturing. I think one of the things we've seen as people have suffered when they've been away from school much is that we need to build up that resilience again. So we've got to spend an awful lot of time working on how we can build up our resilience of our young people at school, and certainly creating that nurturing environment I think we need in order for people to thrive. Because if people aren't feeling well in themselves, they're not going to be feeling well enough to learn and to study and to become the very best they can be. So as I said, the last 2 years have been a challenge. I'm really hopeful as we get into September that things can change. And we've got some opportunities, as I said, that at the very start of the presentation that we're going to look to put in place just to extend that very start of the year for the year 7, to give you that bit of extra time to actually find out a bit more about us, just to find your feet a bit, and also an opportunity for parents to come in as well. But like I say, we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. Now, our mission statement that we said earlier, with Christ as our guide, learning together, loving God and each other, becoming the best we can be, I think is one of the best mission statements I've come across. Actually, it was here long before I joined the staff here at St Peter's, because I think it really encapsulates exactly what we're about. And we've already looked at a little, I think, with Christ as our guide with our prayer at the beginning. But what I want to talk about now is the learning together. And we're going to take each of the lines separately as we move through. So when we say learning together, we here at St Peter's are absolutely obsessed with teaching and learning. We want to make our teaching and learning the very, very best it can be. And to do that, we need to look at our practice. We know what works well in our classrooms, but we also need to look wider. We need to look at the field of research and see, not just what works well here at St Peter's, but what works well in any classroom, in any country, in terms of teaching and learning. And there's amazing bits of research on this saying what does make the difference. And we really take this on board in terms of how we deliver our lessons. So we know that the chart here I've shown you on the left talks about the things which make the most difference. So feedback to children, actually telling the children how their work was, what they need to do to improve, getting the children involved in that feedback as well, is perhaps the most significant thing we can do as a school. The chart on the right there, where it says +8, that's the number of months extra children can make if this is in place. So feedback is absolutely key. The next one down there is metacognition and self-regulation, and that really is all about learning to learn. So it's how do we learn, learning skills we need, how do we regulate ourselves, how do we ensure that we're learning everything it is we need to do. So these things are absolutely key as well. I'm afraid to say that homework's up there as well. Homework set in the right way can make an absolute massive difference as well. And it's really interesting to see down the bottom of the screen there that collaborative learning is also absolutely crucial. So students working together is really, really important. And we've not been able to do that nearly so much, obviously, in the circumstances we've found ourselves in this year. We also know what doesn't make a difference, and actually what can have a negative effect as well. And some of the things we see here on the right hand side of the screen really can be detrimental to your child's learning. So things such as repeating a year can have very, very disastrous effects on your child. Setting and streaming, again, is something which can have a negative impact as well. So we take all these things on board as we work out what it is we're going to do to enable your child to become the best they can be. Now, next year, I want 2 focus really points for us to look at. The first is obviously teaching and learning that I've spoken about already. We've got to get our teaching and learning right. I really want to work on making sure we've got a consistent approach to teaching and learning. And one of the things we're particularly interested in is Rosenshine's Principles of Instruction. Just a little guide there on the screen, something you can perhaps look at later on. But this is something which is very, very simple and very, very basic, but it does tell us exactly what it is we need to do to help our children make great progress. So it's something we're starting to roll out next year. So I'm hoping children will start to benefit from that. In fact, I know some of our feeder primary schools are already using this, so it'd be really, really good for them to bring their experience to this as well. The other thing I really want us to have is clear and consistent routines. And we've always had these at St Peter's, but I think it's especially important now as we're coming out of this time of COVID, hopefully, and we are coming from lots and lots of different schools. It's really important that our rules and our routines are absolutely clear and consistent and that everybody buys into them. So there's another book here we've been working on, which is by Tom Bennett, called Running the Room, which is absolutely brilliant guide to how we ensure we have very, very good behaviour in schools. And that's absolutely key, because we've got to the right climate for learning. If we don't have the right climate for learning, it's going to be difficult for the teaching and learning to take place. So these are the 2 things we're absolutely going to be focusing on next year and beyond. So that's a little bit about learning together. I think the children as well, the young people joining us, your children need to have the right mindset as well. So I've got a question now for the children here who are joining us next year in year 7. What sort of a mindset do you have is the question. So if you're struggling with something in class or you're finding something difficult, what is your natural reaction to think? Do you say, I can't do this? Or do you say, I can try a different strategy? When you finish a piece of work, do you say, this work is good enough? Or do you say, is this really my best work? And again, if something that you're finding really challenging, do you say this is too hard? Or do you say this may take some more time and take some more effort? And needless to say, the sorts of people we're looking to form here are those with a growth mindset. So it's really important that you're open to learning, because a growth mindset is absolutely key if you're going to make great progress here at St. Peter's. Now, the next line in our mission statement is loving God and each other. And for me, this is really about one thing. It's about relationships. If we get the relationships right, we're going to get everything else right. Now, in my office, this picture, or a copy of this picture here, is hanging up on the wall. The picture is by Norman Rockwell. The original is actually a mural in the United Nations building in New York. And on it, it's got the golden rule, which is, of course, from St. Matthew's Gospel. The golden rule, it doesn't matter what your background, what your belief, what your faith. The golden rule is applicable to every single person in our community. And it goes as follows: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's absolutely key that our young people and everybody in our community follows this. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We get that right, things will be fine. The next one, I think, is really about teenagers. And, you know, we have a very skilled group of staff here at school who work with teenagers, who enjoy working with teenagers. And I happen to think teenagers get an incredibly bad press. You know, when we think of teenagers, perhaps this is one of the pictures that comes up. You know, students sat down together, not talking to each other, just on their mobile phones. Possibly it's this picture here we might see with a hooded gang there. You can see them hanging out on their bikes. And again, not looking very pleasant at all. I'm hoping that that isn't the image you think of when you think of teenagers as well. But the reason I talk about this one is because every time I interview somebody for a post at St. Peter's, the one question I really enjoy asking them is the following. It is, what do you like about working with teenagers? And what I find really interesting when I ask this question is that any tension that might be there in the member staff's body as I'm asking them a question relaxes, because when I ask them this question, they always answer this one so freely. The reason they enjoy working with teenagers is because of this picture here. Now, I know this picture is a bit cheesy, the one that's come up, but it really encompasses all those answers that I hear from the staff. What they say is the following. When I say, why do you enjoy working with teenagers? They talk about the energy of young people. They talk about their openness. They talk about how they are so keen to learn. And that's what it is. That's enthusiasm. And they really believe it's a true privilege to work with young people. And I won't employ anybody at the school who doesn't look at working with teenagers in that way. So it's absolutely important. The relationships from staff are important because the staff want to get the best for all the children here at St. Peter's. Finally, I think the homeschool partnership is absolutely key as well when we're talking about working together. So the homeschool partnership is key. It's absolutely vital that the parents and the school have a very good relationship and they work well together, and we're coming from the same angle, really sharing the same ethos. This picture did the rounds on social media a few years ago, which I don't know, I found the picture quite silly in many ways, I've got to be honest, but in case you can't make it out on your screen, it's a picture of a parents' evening, and it's comparing what it was like then to what it's like now. And when we look back at what it was like then, we can see the poor child there's obviously got a bad report from his teacher, and the parents turn around and looking very angrily at him saying, what's up with those grades? Whereas it's saying now today, if the teacher says that the grades are bad, the child there looks very smug, the teacher there looks absolutely petrified, and the parents having a real go at them. Now, obviously, this is a really simplified picture here, but it's missing. What it does, it makes it a very valid point. And the point that I take from this is that there's been no communication. There's been no communication between the parents and the school at any point. And it's absolutely key that we do that. So we don't jump to conclusions. There may be times your child has difficulties at school. And if that is the case, just get in touch and talk to us. And that's absolutely what we must do. Likewise, if if there's some issues with your child at school, we'll absolutely get in touch with you if there's any concerns as well. We've got to make sure that relationship is strong. We've got to make sure that relationship lasts, and it's really important you understand that by coming to St. Peter's or sending your child to St. Peter's, you're going to be working with us in partnership. We want to work together. The children who do the absolute best here at St. Peter's are those where we've got these great relationships with the family. So let's make sure for all of us that's something we will buy into as we move forward. Now, the final line of our mission statement is becoming the best we can be. And I think this is an incredibly open line because it can mean any number of things. But as your child is starting on their Year 7 journey with us at St. Peter's, the question is, what is that becoming the best we can be? What does it mean to your child? What is it your child is aspiring to be? And young people, what is it you aspire to be? And I would like to share some real success stories we've had of students or past students at St. Peter's who've done superbly well and go on to do amazing things. The first one I'd like to share, and I must say it was difficult to choose just 3 people to share with you, but I've chosen the 3 I want to share, and I'll explain why. The first here is G. Vimenta. She is the captain of the English netball team, went on to win a gold medal just a couple of years ago. Yeah, absolutely superb in her support. And what I really think is amazing about this character is she still keeps her links with the school. So just last year, she popped back to see us and led a little session with a group of our students, and it was wonderful to have her in school. So it's wonderful that someone who's done incredibly well in their St Peter's journey wants to come back and talk to us as well. So if you're aspiring to be a sport, an amazing sports star, there's no reason it can't happen. We've got lots of people who've gone on to do that. We've had Premier League footballers and all sorts of others as well. So if sport is your thing, we can help nurture that talent if you work with us as we go through. The picture I put up now is somebody we're particularly proud of at the moment, which is Professor Andrew Pollard, who's the head of the Oxford vaccine group, and of course, which has gone on to develop the AstraZeneca vaccine. He was recently knighted, or in the Queen's Honours List to be knighted, so we're incredibly proud of him. He was actually our head boy back in 1982 and 1983, and his family is certainly still local, so it's really good to see a former student again doing such amazing things, having such an impact on the world. And the final one I share is perhaps acting is your thing. Perhaps you love the world of acting and dance and performance. Well, the picture here is Jack Donnelly. Again, he was a former student of ours who left here. He starred in the BBC hit show Atlantis, and amazingly, he was actually in touch with us this morning about coming back into school to come and look around again. And it's wonderful to see former students remembering their time here at St Peter's so fondly. So as I say to you, no matter what your expertise is, no matter what it is you want to do, we can help you become that way as long as you work with us, and that's absolutely key. I'm going to, and sorry, the final picture here is just our beautiful site. I thought I'd put this one up again because you haven't had the opportunity to visit us, so you can see what beautiful grounds we have here, what a beautiful school we've got, and I can't wait for you all to join us. I hope that in time we'll be able to put the star picture back together again, and perhaps your child can be the star there as well. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to hand over to Sarah Johnson, who is our senior leader for Year 7 and also looks after transition for us. So we're just going to pass over now.
Good evening. I am very excited to be talking to you this evening about actually coming and joining us. The journey from starting to think about what secondary school you're going to go to, right the way through to actually arriving, passes very, very quickly. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do the things that we had hoped that we would be able to do this summer with our induction evenings and transfer day. But it's really important to us that you feel comfortable and excited about joining us and know as much as you possibly can about life at St Peter's Southbourne, our secondary phase, before you join us. So we know that starting a new school is in some ways daunting, in many ways very exciting, but change is always challenging. And so we want to help you through that process so that you can find your way into the secondary community at St Peter's and feel at home here as quickly as possible. We have decided to start of term for Year 7 so that they have plenty of opportunity to start to find their way around. So on Friday the 1st of September they are going to be here on their own with their tutors and teachers, familiarising themselves with the site and just having a day where there's lots of space and everything's quite quiet without lots and lots of students here for everyone to start to find their feet and get to know their way around. And then Monday the 4th of September will continue that time. There might be other year groups in school that day, but it will still be about familiarisation, settling in and finding their way around. We haven't been able to do the normal things that we would do in terms of transition, and things that, as Mr. Doyle said earlier, have been challenging over the past 2 years. But this storm will pass. And so we want to look forward to welcoming you here and help you settle and find your way around in brighter times. In order for you to get to know us a little bit over the summer before you join us, we will be setting up another transitions tab on our school website. We did this last year and it was really successful. So we will put these things back together again and we'll send you an email with a link to it when it's all ready. It's all ready to go, so it won't take long to put together. The idea is that you will be able to go on a virtual tour of school. We had one of our ex-students produce a drone video of a tour of St Peter's. So if you haven't had the chance to have a look around, you can visit virtually and have a look at the facilities and the site and everything that we have on offer here. The new pupil handbook is a wonderful source of information for students. Now, parents, you've already had your new parent pack, and there's a parent handbook in there that has lots of information about school life. But this is the go-to information source for the young people who are joining us. If there's anything they want to know about how we do things at St Peter's, it's in that pack. So a link to that will be on the website and you can have a look. There will be Meet the Tutor videos. So the tutor team last year, each tutor made a little video introducing themselves and telling them a bit about you. So you know which tutor group you're in, you could click on the video and you can get to know your tutor a little bit. We also put some activities for you to do and some quizzes on there, some links to some online quizzes, which will hopefully again familiarise you with what's in the handbook and help you get to feel like you're part of this community and getting to know people. Any updated information about things that are going on, events that are running, plans for transfer day, any extra information you need, we will email out, but we will also update the information on that transitions page. So hopefully everyone will know what's going on. In your new parent pack, you received some forms and some information. The yellow student entry form is absolutely crucial. And this is the one thing that I need you to complete and return by post or by hand before the end of this term, so before the 20-something of July. It's really important that we have this information in, mostly because it updates us of any medical information that we need to know about your child and your child's contact details. We only have at the moment the details of the person who submitted the application if you're a new student joining us, and so it's absolutely crucial that we have contact details for everybody and that they're ready to go before the start of next term. In your pack, you received a biometric consent form and a music tuition form. They are online. The links were emailed out to you today. So all you need to do is click on the link and fill in the form online. Some of you have already done that. Absolutely brilliant. That's been received. You don't need to do it again. But if you could do that as soon as possible, that would be brilliant. The biometric consent is really important. That's about having their thumbprint so that they can buy food from the canteen using the parent pay. We will be accepting cash for the first few days, but the sooner that's done and ready, that's great. If you don't want to use a thumbprint, you can have a pin. So there's another way of doing it, but if you could return that form online, that would be brilliant. This is a huge plea. We send emails to everybody using our data system, but it doesn't come through with perhaps a member of staff's name, and it does have a habit, because it goes to lots of people, of dropping into people's junk mail. So if you receive an email that says St Peter's Catholic Voluntary Academy Trust with the capita in touch on the end, that is an email from us, and that's what it looks like when you receive it. So if you could check your junk mail, some people, I've already had contact with a few people today who hadn't received it, so please So to the start of term, what to wear? Normally on transfer day, when we have it in July, students come in their current school uniform. But in September, we're obviously going to ask you to come in your new school uniform. I asked 2 of my year 7s today to model it for you. So this is them, and then they smiled for me. And this is the uniform as it is at the moment. Girls can wear trousers, tailored trousers, and the boys there with the shirt and tie and the smart shoes that can be polished, not trainers. No trainers or Air Force Ones, I'm afraid. Peter's uniform, what do you need to bring with you? You need to bring a pencil case on those first days in September. In the handbook, the pupil handbook, there's a page that says what to bring. So have a little look and see what you need, but some pens and pencils. You need either a packed lunch or money for the canteen. We are hoping that we'll be able to set the biometrics up in the morning so that they can use their thumbprint as soon as possible, but I don't want to rely on that for the first day. So cash, please, for the first couple of days, so that we know that we can feed them. If your child, actually just going back one, if your child is in receipt of free school meals, you don't need to do anything. That information comes directly to us, and they don't need to bring money for the canteen on that first day. They will have their money for their lunch. If they want to buy an extra snack at break time, they will need a little bit extra. And that the same actually goes if they're in receipt of pupil premium funding. That continues with them. They don't need to do anything. So when to arrive? Between 8:30 and 8:45 is ideal. There will be people here to greet you and show you where to go. So we'll take you down, if it's dry, down to the playground. As I said, there'll be nobody in on that day, no other year groups in on that day. So they'll be able to have the space to find their friends and to make new friends, get to know each other, and there'll be staff down there welcoming them and looking after them. I'm quite often asked, is it okay to drop them off a bit earlier? Can they come in on the school bus? Absolutely, they can do that. That won't be a problem. We'll confirm what's happening on the Friday about school buses. So, I'm not sure whether the bus company will run it for Year 7, but we'll confirm that to you with details at the end of this term, confirming what's happening in September. If they arrive early, there will be staff here from 8 o'clock onwards. We don't want any young people on site before 8 o'clock, but after that there will be people here to look after them and chat to them and make them feel very welcome. When to go home? So our finishing time is at 3:20. Could we please ask you though not to park in front of the gates or in front of school, but to park away and walk in to collect them. It does get very busy at the gate, so that's a bit of a first day, pick them up, and then they can start to find their way to you a bit further afield. If they're catching buses home, that's absolutely fine. They can do that. School buses are outside the front of school. Public buses are up on the main road, but we'll show them where to go. So what will they do during these days? There will be mostly tutor based during those two days. They'll have lots of time to spend with their tutor group, and the most important thing about those first 2 days is that young people get to know us and they get to know each other. They're mixed up into tutor groups. There are 8 tutor groups in Year 7. Some of them will know other people because they're coming from schools where we have a larger intake. There are lots and lots of students this year who are coming on their own and who don't know anybody. So it's important that we are welcoming and make sure that we have opportunity to get to know each other and feel that we are making connections with one another and building those important relationships. That time will be about becoming familiar with routines, so they'll find out about how break time and lunchtime work, how lessons, work changeover between lessons, getting used to their timetable, that sort of thing. Timetable, and we'll have lots of activities that will have them moving around the site, touring the site. There's a site quiz, getting to know the classrooms that they're going to be learning in, so that they don't get lost. Children are always worried about being lost. It's probably the thing I'm asked about most when I go into primary schools. Will I get lost? Probably. I still do, but they will find their way around, and we will be there helping them to do that. We've never lost anybody permanently, so that's okay. We will be making sure that their biometrics are done, or their PIN number, so that they can access food through Parent Pay in the canteen. And they'll have the opportunity to attend some actual lessons. We'll start their timetable just in a couple of places, so that they get the feel for lessons on the secondary timetable and feel that they're getting on with their learning straight away, which we're very excited about. And at some point during those days, we will have a special liturgy. Moving into secondary school is a huge step for young people. Lots of you are coming from quite small primary schools, or maybe two-form entry primary schools, to a school where year 7 is 240 students, sometimes bigger than the whole of the primary school. It's a very special family here, and we do want to look after you and help you feel part of the community and family. And that liturgy is a wonderful time to reflect on what we've gained from our primary schools, what we've learnt, what we've achieved, and what was special to us about our primary schools. But then looking forward to the opportunities and the journey that is our secondary school career. And so that liturgy is a really precious time of reflecting and enjoying what the blessings that we have as a community. So that's what's going to happen in those 2 days. I'm going to pass back to Mr. Doyle for questions.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. A really thorough and informative discussion there about what to expect from the first few days back. So we're now coming up to the question and answer session part of our evening. A couple of things just want to pick up on. A few questions have been coming through, which I think are relevant to more people. The first one was about the start of term days. Just apologies there for a slight typo. It's Friday the 3rd and Monday the 6th. So Friday the 3rd will be Year 7's first day. Monday the 6th will be their second day. And one of the things we're hoping to do on that Monday the 6th is to have parents have an opportunity to come into school to visit as well. We'd really like to get parents in so you can have a wander around the site, you can meet your child's tutor as well. So yeah, so hopefully that'll be the case in September, but obviously we need to wait to see where we're at with COVID restrictions as well. So that's the start of term. So Friday the 3rd, Year 7's first day, Monday the 6th is the second day. A couple of other questions which have come up to do with language preferences. So people have been asking that we put in for a language preference, either French or Spanish. Has my child been successful in gaining their language preference? Well, I'm really pleased to say that Ms. Johnson's been able to allocate everybody who selected a language, in particular French or Spanish, has been able to do the one they've selected a preference for. So those ones there are all sorted. Another question came up about whether Year 7s have access to lockers. So lockers have been one thing we've not been using this year because of COVID and people gathering in certain areas of the school and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to see where we're at a couple of weeks into September before we make a firm decision on that one. So that's where we'll go with that one. So those are the two main questions which have come up. If anybody else has got any other questions now, very happy to wait for a moment. If anyone would like to give us any feedback as well on the evening, we'd appreciate that as well. So you can just pop that in the question and answer box as well. I did want to just say I am really sorry we couldn't have you in person again tonight. Yeah, we really did want to have you in. I think it's really important that we get those, relationships and meet each other, very, very early on in the process. So I'm sorry that's not been able to happen. And hopefully this evening's gone some way to make up for the lack of being able to come in person. But like I say, we're hoping we can replicate this in September anyway. So I'm just going to hang on now. We'll wait to see if we've got any other questions coming through. We'll keep on for about 5 minutes or so, I think. And once people start to leave, we'll then go from there. So I'll just leave it now by saying thank you all very much. Any more questions come up, we'll deal with those. But take care and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye. Okay, so we've had one question come in already. One extra one is whether paper copies of the biometric registration forms are available. Yes, they are available. If you need a copy of that, you can collect that from reception. So yeah, absolutely, paper copies there are available upon request. I'll also say that the presentation this evening has been recorded as well. So if there's anything you wanted to go over again, and we will be sending out the link to this afterwards, so you'll be able to actually view it at your leisure. Or perhaps not everybody's been able to watch it this evening as well. So, and if you know of anybody who was unable to make tonight, you could also pass it on to them at the same time. Okay, so another question's come in is regarding whether Year 7 have all their lessons in the same room or even the same building. So what I'd say on that one is that students do move around the site. It is a large site, and we did earlier in the year have zoning in the school, but we haven't had that for the rest of the academic year. So children will move between, from lesson to lesson, from classroom to classroom. As Ms Johnson said, children do get lost from time to time, and teachers get lost from time to time as well, but we soon find our way around. So yeah, you'll soon get to know the site. Your child will be an expert within a day or two, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've had another question coming in regarding when your child will find out who their tutor is. The tutor group, you don't necessarily know who the tutor is. What I will say is we're just finalising the timetable at the moment, so over the next week or two that should be complete, and as soon as that is complete, we'll be emailing out to let you know the name of your child's tutor as well. So hopefully that clears that up. Okay, we've had a question in about cycle storage and what provision we've got to store bikes on the school site. I'm really pleased to say we were just successful in a special grant from the local authority to increase the amount of storage space we've got. So on the school, we've got plenty of bike sheds we can use. They're actually located in different areas of the school site as well, which is good. And we've also got a tool station and a repair station and a wash station. We've also got a dryer now if your child gets absolutely soaked on the way in as well, which we can use from time to time as well. So we're really pleased with the cycling provision we've got. We have seen more children cycling into school, obviously since the onset of COVID. So yeah, plenty of children cycling into school. There's places to lock it. What is absolutely key though is that your child has a sturdy lock so they can lock their bike every single time at school. Oh, and of course, sorry, I've just been reminded, of course, yes, cycle helmets as well. We do try and encourage all of our students to wear cycle helmets whenever cycling is obviously very important for their safety. We've had some questions regarding whether students need to wear face masks in school in September. Now, obviously, we don't know what the situation is going to be exactly in September, but at the moment, the current guidance is that students do not have to wear face masks when they're moving around the school site or when they're in lessons. There are a couple of exceptions to this, however. The first is whilst getting school buses or a public bus. Transport regulations are still that people have to wear face coverings whilst on buses. So obviously children need to wear those, whether it's a school bus or a public bus alike. And the other time we ask students to wear face masks still is when they're queuing up for the canteen. So if they're looking to get some food from our canteen dining room, they need to wear that whilst they're queuing up, because again, that's an area where they could come into contact with students from other year groups. But we're hoping those things won't be in place come September. But just, you know, that's where we are at the moment with these. Okay, so we've had a couple more people asking about lockers and whether year 7s have access to lockers or not. I did answer this one just a little bit earlier, but just to go through that one again, we haven't been using lockers this year because of COVID regulations in school. So what we're going to do is we're going to see where we're at the start of September. So we'll make a decision on that one a couple of weeks into the new term. So can't answer that one for now, I'm afraid, but we will be addressing that one as we return to school. It may actually be a very good question we could ask if we can have our Year 6 parents or the parents' evening for the New Year 7s, as your child will be then, of course, at the very start of term. So certainly one we can look at, and we'll certainly let you know right at the start of term on that one, where we can go. So we've had a few questions about whether after school sports clubs will be able to take place. Well, we have restarted those at the moment anyway. They're having to run in a slightly different way than they usually would. So we would normally have lots of year groups doing those together, but what we've had to do at the moment is keep those quite distanced on the field. So in particular at the moment we've got our athletics club happening after school, so we tend to have the Year 7s I think doing track, while the Year 8s perhaps do the field, and the following week they swap. We also like do lots of other clubs, including football and netball and perhaps any other sport you can think of as well. And again, very well attended. So the PE department put the schedule together, and then they get that out to the parents so you can see what's going on, so you know exactly what's happening on what day. There haven't been any teams competitions this year against other schools. That's something that sadly hasn't been able to happen, but again we're really hoping that will be able to take place again once restrictions are eased that bit more. But just for the moment that hasn't been happening between schools, but we're hopeful in September we may be able to do those again. Okay, a few questions about mobile phone policy at school as well. So I can talk you through the mobile phone policy. The official mobile phone policy at St Peter's is that phones are not to be in school, and if they are seen they will be confiscated in school. However, we have changed that slightly in the wake of COVID, because people have been perhaps a little bit more anxious about travelling to and from school. So what we've said from this year is that what we're allowing is students can have their phone in school. Obviously at school we don't take any responsibility for that, but if the phone is seen at any point during the school day, that phone will be confiscated, and there's a series of increasing sanctions if you're caught with your phone in school. So if your phone is caught the first time, you can get it back at the end of the day. The second time it may be taken away from longer, or the parent may need to come and collect it, and so on. But we do understand that some students like to use the phone for their bus passes and so on as well. So the key thing is, as long as it's not seen in school, it's not an issue, but again at the same time we don't take responsibility for the phone. So if your child has sport or games, your PE lessons, and they need to leave the phone somewhere, there obviously is a risk there. But like I say, if a child wants to bring the phone to school, if we don't see it then it's not an issue, but as soon as we do see it we enforce our school rules as we always would with mobile phones. So we had a couple of questions about the groups children will be in for different lessons around the school. So a couple of things to clarify on this. We have an X band and a Y band. They are parallel bands. So, X has equal ability children that are in band Y as well. So there's no difference at all between X and Y in terms of ability. So what will happen is your child will be in their tutor group for some of their lessons, so that's the way it goes, and for other lessons they won't be. Maths classes tend to set to a certain extent regarding those classes, and we tend to try and get a bit of a mix across different subjects. Now again, this year we've not been able to do that nearly so much because with COVID we've had to keep bubbles as distinct as possible and so on, but certainly in a normal year, if we don't have those restrictions in place, your child will be in a variety of different classes for different subjects. I mean, certainly PE and technology group sizes are smaller anyway, but they'll tend to be in a different number, different groups for different classes. So hopefully that will all be clear. Thank you. Okay, understandably, we've had a few more COVID-related questions, such as will we be having vaccinations in school? Will face masks still be obligatory? Will there still be testing in schools, and so on? I mean, on all of these questions, what I will say is we take all of our advice from the Department for Education and Public Health England. So what happens is guidance is issued, we look at the guidance, we work through the guidance, we discuss the guidance with our governing body, and then we put that in place. So whatever we do is in line with whatever public health advice is there at the time. So I'm sorry, I can't give any more firm answers on that at the moment, but certainly I can assure you that we follow the advice and the guidance every single time that comes out. Okay, we've not had any new questions in for the last few minutes, so we're going to leave it there. So can I just say thank you very much. There's still 66 people attending, which is great. So thank you all for your time this evening. I hope it's been useful, and as I say, take care, and we really look forward to meeting you all in person in September. So I wish you all a very good evening and a very good end to the term. Wish you all the best, and goodbye.